Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Birds of a Feather podcast. Well, YouTube show. I'm used to doing the lazy booking podcast. My bad. But welcome back to the Birds of a Feather YouTube show. I am your host, Michael Chromiak. I'm here with our co-host, Charles Moranin. How you doing, buddy?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Good to be back for another week. I do apologize. Last week, I know our debut show, there were some issues with my video and my audio. I had no clue it was going to be like that. Um, Hopefully, as it looks like, it looks like everything is better this week. Um, I'm more settled in, so this week should be a much improved show from last week.
Agreed. Totally agreed. Sorry.
As Chrome leaves.
Yeah, no, I'm here. My bad. I just have the dogs barking and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we're here. We're good. We're ready to go. It's been a fun week. I don't know about you. I have the playoff baseball game here. I got my Smurfs, gummy bears, and my water. I'm fired up. Charles put together a good show for us this week. So let's kick it off. Let's recap Eagles Cardinals. I'm going to start off by saying kudos to you, sir. Unfortunately, I did not have a chance for my player to look out for to do anything this week because unfortunately he got announced, a day or two after we did the show that he was going to be out.
Yeah.
And that was Smallwood. So, Wendell Smallwood. So, last week you picked Torrey Smith to have a breakout game. And let's hear your thoughts on his game this week, Charles.
I think it's exactly what I said last week. I think he came in from his tweet that he sent out about how he's gonna bounce back. He came in, and that pass to him, it's a little low. He caught it, in his little bit of his bread basket, but it was still a catch. You take a catch any way you can, and he just beat the defender to the end zone, and that's exactly what we wanted from Torrey Smith. And it was just a matter of time before Carson Wentz and him connected because they've been trying. So it was good to see. I'm glad I was right, and I called his breakout game. And let's just hope that there are definitely more of those to come in the near future because we need those type of plays from him.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was a good call on your part. Obviously not a perfectly thrown ball, but more than catchable, and caught him in stride, and he was able to, do what he was able to do. The passing game this game looked fantastic. I mean, you look at Nelson Aguilar and really Carson Wentz just in general, what they were able to do on third down conversions, and they were able to have some of those deep balls and those extended plays go and extended drives. Obviously, Nelson Aguilar, he's the only player, I believe the only player in the NFL this year to have 2 50-yard plus touchdown runs. Is that correct?
Touchdown catches, yeah.
Catches, yeah. Right.
That's great. Yeah. Who would have thought? Who seriously would have thought that the only guy to do that would be Nelson? But it is. It's him. He's made 2 huge plays. And, I was with you at the bar again this week, and I went absolutely nuts when he caught that. It was 3rd and 19 too, to be honest. And I don't know what the Cardinals were doing, playing cover 0 with no safety help, but that was just way too easy for Carson. And granted, he called it. Nelson Aguilar, spotted it out. Carson saw it and just hit him in stride. And Aguilar, to his credit, he showed his run after the catch ability that was so highly talked about when he was coming out of college. He's electric after the catch, and he has that elusiveness and that speed and change of direction ability to evade defenders, and he did. Buda Baker, I feel sorry for him because he's been all over the highlight reels, just getting embarrassed. But hey, that's Nelson Aguilar. That's what we want. That's what we wanted to see, and it was. I personally went nuts, and it was great. To see another long touchdown catch by him, so an electric play that's been all over, ESPN, NFL Network, all over highlight reels all week. It's great to see from him.
I mean, I agree with you. He was fantastic. Um, but let's not forget that we got our highlight of the old Nelson Aguilar, and he dropped that football.
Yeah. Yes, he did have a drop pass, but yeah, to his credit, he came back the very next play and caught that third down.
I don't care; it doesn't count.
First.
He dropped the football.
Oh, Nelson Aguilar keeping his
I'm
own
already
head.
off the bandwagon now. It's done.
All right, that's fine. You'll be hopping on next week. Trust me.
Yeah, no. Obviously, that was a little troll of our buddy Mark Kelleher, but no, it was awesome to see him make that. I mean, that play was insane. To me, that was like watching. It was a combination of a football play, like a football pass, and then just watching like a pass to Allen Iverson, who then runs down in front of the end zone and does like a one-on-one spinning crossover and then scores a touchdown. It was insane. I loved it. It was one of those plays that got everybody where we were at in the bar. Everybody jumped out of their seats, and it just created a lot of excitement. It was a highlight reel play. You're going to see that for the rest of the season, I'm sure. And if he is a guy who has turned a corner finally and will live up to at least a good portion of that talent that he was expected to show, that could be the first highlight that you start to see in his package for years to come. It was awesome. So kudos to him again. Just to kind of get back to the whole third down conversions and seeing the passing and how efficient they were, short passes, long passes, mixing the running in when it needed to be there. LeGarrette Blount wasn't 136 yards, but he had another great game running the football, picking up big chunks of yards when it was needed. Clement had another really strong showing for the Eagles this week. I was really impressed to see how the running game went, and Chris and Kenyon Barner, first game that you really got to see him show his stuff in Darren Sproles' place. I think we talked about how good he looked in the return game, and I think that he had to come in here as a guy that lost a roster spot. He had to come in and show that he was ready to play and make an impact. Otherwise, I don't know that he would have lasted long. Obviously, we saw a guy, and I don't know that they would have gone after him, but we saw like Adrian Peterson got moved this week. If he didn't have a good week, who's to say that the Eagles don't go out and say, all right, we got to pick this guy up because we need something. We could figure the return game out, but if he's not contributing enough. I thought that everything he looked good. I know one notation, I don't want to spoil anything, but I know one notation you had is let's see what he can do more in the running game now to go with the special teams that we saw. So, what is your reaction to what we saw with him in the return game this week? I can't even really recall. Did we get a lot of him running the football this week?
Not that I recall. Maybe if
maybe a run here or there.
One here or there. Before I get into the Barner thing, I just want to touch on Carson Wentz's numbers on third down. He converted 9 of 12 third downs with 3 touchdown passes and 255 yards. That is ridiculous on third down. And these third downs, some of them, like I said, weren't short third downs. They were long third downs. So that stat line is absolutely insane. So kudos to Carson. One thing, another thing that I did notice too, on those long balls to Torrey Smith and Nelson Aguilar, if you pay attention, those were on deep crossing routes. They were cutting across the middle of the field, and that's different from earlier on in the season, in the earlier games, when they kept trying to hit go routes, fade routes, and Carson was struggling hitting those. I think that they might have spotted something with Carson's long ball where he is more effective on the long crossing routes, and maybe that's something we start to see more of with those deep passes that they're trying to attempt. Is maybe they're going to have more post routes, maybe on deep ends, or maybe whenever they see cover zero looks like they saw on the Aguilar play, they're going to hit those instead of just a go route where it's just flat out go straight. So that's something to keep an eye out for. I think that's a good adjustment by the coaches if they did spot that on purpose, and that they used it and exploited the Cardinals' defense. So going into Barner, I think last year you have to remember that Barner came in. He was a journeyman. I don't want to say journeyman. He was with the Panthers before, but nothing really. Nothing really great with them. But he came in and immediately he was under Sproles' wing, and Sproles taught him the nuances of the return game, what you're supposed to be looking out for, how instead of like practicing pregame catching punts from your punter, you're keeping an eye out on the opponent's punter and how he kicks his ball. Little stuff like that. Barner has stated that he's learned a lot from Sproles and how to be a better returner, and it showed in the preseason last year. Barner like had, what was it, like two returns for touchdowns, I think, last year. It was either last season. I think it was last season. But that shows his skill and improvement in that department. So with Sproles going down, I don't think there was a better player to come in and take his spot than Barner. Barner coming in and giving comfort in the return game, that we're able to say, hey, we're going to be okay in that department. As far as the offense goes, I did notice that Barner was in there for a bunch of snaps with Smallwood being down with an injury, and he was taking the role of the passing down running back. And I don't think he got carries that I remember, but he was getting looks and some targets in the passing game. For me, last year, I had said that as a running back, I actually liked Barner and his effectiveness as a runner, as a running back too. In the past, as an option out of the backfield, I liked him better than I did Smallwood, because I felt like Barner had a better feel, better instincts with following his blockers than Smallwood did. I felt like Barner is more explosive, more elusive in the open field, whereas Smallwood kind of, like I said last week, he kind of runs into his linemen too often. He can't find the hole, and also like he's not creative in the open field. He's not going to make defenders miss too often. So I actually personally I liked Barner more than Smallwood. Apparently the coaches didn't agree with me, because if they did, Barner would have been here to start the season. They're in love with Smallwood, and I'm not saying Smallwood's bad, but I think Barner being here, as the season goes on, if he continues to play well, not only in the return game, but also on offense with the limited reps he does get here and there, if he makes plays, I think you can start to see him carving out a larger and larger role as the season goes on, depending also on the health of Smallwood, because he hasn't been able to stay healthy. If that continues to be a problem for Smallwood, Barner could come in and he could carve out a nice role in this offense. So we'll wait and see. It's a little premature. It's only been one game back, but I do like Barner being here. I think it was a smart signing, and it's so far, one game in, it's definitely paying off.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And defensively, I think the Eagles looked really strong yet again this week. I'm thinking I'm going to jump the gun and throw the churro out now, because for me, it was overall the whole secondary. I thought that they did a really great job of shutting down the passing game. You can even go with the defensive line, just because they put so much pressure on Carson Palmer, and I really felt like they disrupted that passing game. Larry Fitzgerald, to me, this is the first game I can recall in 10 years that Larry Fitzgerald was essentially shut down and a non-factor. Yeah, and I was really impressed with the defensive scheme this week. I thought that they, on defensive line, secondary, everything, linebackers, everybody contributed this week and made sure that they executed the game plan, and I was really, really impressed. If my churro is going to go to the whole secondary, because I just thought that they all look. I love Jalen Mills. To me, gets better and better every week, and I really enjoy, especially now that we don't have Darby. Although I think we might be finally getting him back in the near future.
Yeah.
And rumor possibly Sidney Jones as well, maybe coming back this year and fairly early. I'm really excited and very, very encouraged in seeing what we've seen, to this point and going forward. So, that's really all I wanted to contribute about the defense. I mean, in fairness, the show of or the story of the week was the offense, and I just feel like the defense maybe won't get as much recognition as they should, but they were awesome this week. Now, again, it's a team that's hurt, a team that just had to go out and trade for Adrian Peterson to try to get some kind of impact players on this roster, but with David Johnson out. But I was impressed with what I saw. You got to beat the teams that you're supposed to beat.
Definitely.
That's really the problem that we've seen a lot of times with Eagles teams over the years, is they beat some tough teams, but then they lose games that they shouldn't lose. It's like, to me, it's like the Steelers. You see the Steelers will score 30 points against a team that normally scores 30 points. But then they play a team that can't score, and for whatever reason, with all the weapons they have, they put up 13 or 16 points, and it's down to the wire the last 2 minutes or an overtime game. I feel like that can be us a lot of times. This year, I'm seeing a whole different team, a different swagger, both on defense and offense. The coaching staff seems to be much more confident in the roster they put together this year, and I'm really, really satisfied with what we're seeing. So that's my defensive churro. I'll give the offensive one later. What do you got for this week for the defense?
So the defense, I'll keep it short. You pretty much touched on it. All around dominant. The defensive line, front seven, just the Cardinals did not run in us at all. They could not run in us at all. They had no room whatsoever, and that's a great job by that front seven. Nigel Bradham had a game all over the place.
Dude, I love Bradham.
Kudos to him. And also another thing to point out is a lot of time on those dime packages, Michael Kendricks has been the linebacker on the dime packages, if you notice. And I was watching the game over again, the game tape over again on Game Pass, and he's in there. So he's getting more. He's earning himself more playing time. So kudos to him. I think the Eagles coaching staff, Jim Schwartz, they're spotting out his strengths and weaknesses, and they feel like in a dime package, his speed is most beneficial to be used in a dime package. So. For me, if you're going to go ahead and jump the gun with your churro, I will too. The defense for the churro of the game for the defensive side, for me, is going to go specifically to Patrick Robinson because he almost had 3 interceptions. So close.
Oh, man, we were going crazy. How did he drop that one and that one? But, I mean, they were great plays. I mean,
they were great plays, yeah.
It's just...
and it was some of them, there were tough catches where he had it and the wide receiver just –
made a great defensive play on him, right?
It's he had a wonderful game. It's just amazing how back in training camp and preseason, he was so close to being cut. Like he was horrible as an outside corner, but then once we traded for Darby and they moved him to the slot, he thrived and he got better and better. And now he's playing like our best corner. And it's funny because in this game, they instead of playing Douglas a lot on the outside and Robinson in the slot, they had a good majority of snaps where Jenkins was moving inside in the slot and Robinson was moved outside to cover receivers on the outside. So they've been doing a lot. I don't know if it was just certain matchups against the Cardinals. If that's what they wanted to do, they felt like Jenkins was provided a good matchup for Larry Fitzgerald because he's more physical. It's more like a very smart guy, not explosive. So maybe they felt like Jenkins being in the slot was a better matchup to go up against Larry Fitz, and that's why they did it. But either way, Robinson had a great game. He's playing awesome. So my churro goes to him, and the defense just dominant all around all game.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that, and that was a great call. He probably would have been mine, but I didn't want to take him from you, and you told me that first. So, but I mean, again, I was overall impressed just with the secondary in general. I mean, I could have picked anybody. You could say could have did the cop out and did the whole defense. They all deserve them. But I was really super impressed with them this week. So why don't we do who's your offensive churro of the game, and then we can touch on Doug and see where we're at with Doug.
Okay. Hold on one second. Chrome, go ahead. I gotta just hop out for one quick second. Hold on.
Yeah, no
Okay?
problem. You're good. Offensively, I thought that there was a lot of people to highlight. Obviously, I'm gonna leave the obvious for Charles since he had him pegged, but I'm gonna go with Carson Wentz this week. I was really happy to see Carson making a lot more accurate passes. That was one of my criticisms last week, is he didn't look as accurate this year. But I felt like we started to see, whatever work was put in over the last week. I felt like his deep balls looked a lot better. Aside from the one kind of goofy pass that we saw that kind of just went directly straight into the ground. I mean, his short pass game was fantastic. And obviously, you can't knock a guy who has that many, conversions on third down in passing and that much yardage. So, I'm going to give mine to Carson this week. I think he deserves it. I think that, a lot of what my criticisms were last week were what was worked on and what improved. So, there's really no better option for myself.
Cool. So you gave a churro to Carson. That was an easy one. I because it was so easy, I didn't go that way. I went with my boy Aguilar for that highlight reel play he made, like we talked about earlier. So my simple as that, my churro of the game goes to him. Kudos. And usually I'm not one for showboating, but his little shout out to Deshaun Jackson, falling back in the end zone. I don't mind it for that, for everything he's been through, and all the struggles he's had his first 2 years and how well he's playing now. I don't mind it. Go ahead, celebrate, and have at it. So. Well,
I mean, listen, the NFL's become the NFL, the no fun league. I think everything is so serious now with football. And we're not going to talk about it in specifics on this show, but all the political stuff that's been pulled into it. I miss the fun of the game. Like,
yeah,
the 1 week where we had when Jake Elliott made that kick, and people were giving me a hard time about posting it and saying something, and I'm like, listen, you know why this is great? It's not about winning we're going to win the Super Bowl now. You know what it was? It was an actual sports moment in an actual sport. It wasn't all the political mumbo jumbo that's been going on. It was something that made it fun to watch. And to see the excitement of these guys act like little kids, like that was an exciting moment, and I miss that. So you know what? I'm kind of less I get less upset and offended by that kind of stuff, because I just think we got so caught up in the stupidness of it. But it's a sport. It's supposed to be fun. I don't care if they get paid millions of dollars. I love Torrey Smith doing the whole baseball,
that was great.
Home run. Oh man, I marked out for that. That was awesome. I'm a huge baseball guy, so I was like, that was so beautifully set. He had the umpire, the pitcher, the fans in the back. It was awesome. I love that.
That was greatly planned. That was fun.
Yeah, listen, we took the fun out of it. Back when Joe Horn took the cell phone out from under the pad on the goalpost, yeah. and I mean, T.O. would take the pom poms. Like I said, there's certain things you don't do. You don't act like you're taking a piss on the field. And I know I'm going to get heat for this, but it's probably not right to stand on the star and disrespect the star. But I digress.
I don't mind it.
I'm not saying I don't mind it, but in an overall being a non-biased perspective, there are certain things that could be perceived as crossing the line. But listen, if a guy wants to fall backwards, as long as he doesn't drop the football while he's doing it,
yeah,
whatever. I mean, it's fine. I have no problem with it. I'm happy to see that they're allowing these guys to have a little more fun again. So,
I agree.
Yeah, great celebrations this week by the Eagles for sure.
Yes.
So Doug Peterson, I'm not going to say much on Doug Peterson that we didn't touch on already. I think we kind of touched on it. I thought that the passing game was good this week. I thought they executed the running game when it was needed. They didn't overly do it. Last week we talked about you can run on this team. They were a little tougher than we thought that they were as far as a run defense, but you could still run on them. And we showed that if you intermix the plays and keep kind of the defense back on their heels, you can run the football, pass the football. LeGarrette Blount, still, like I said, he didn't have as many rushes this week, but he was still putting up, I don't know what the average was, but it seemed like at least 5 yards per carry. And he was carrying guys on his back, and they were turning garbage into gold when it looked like there was going to be a 1 yard loss. They were making it a 3 yard gain. So I felt like, again, that was great. Obviously, the defensive scheme was fantastic. So it's really all we need to say about Doug and Jim Schwartz, and then really how the coaching staff was this week. I thought that everything was executed to a T, probably what they wanted. So kudos to them as well.
Yep.
Did you want to, Scott, do you want to say something on that?
No, I pretty much agree. The Doug and the coaching staff, another great game. No complaints whatsoever. So just great stuff. He's showing he can beat teams running or passing anyway. So good job by him. No criticism from me this week.
No, this is the first week, even though he's had good weeks, this is the very first week since he's been the head coach, with the exception of maybe Pittsburgh last season. And I don't feel like I have a single criticism of his play calling this week. The week before that, you could talk about the 4th and 8 and our own end of the field was kind of a head scratcher. You had none of that this week. He put all the right guys in the right positions to succeed, and the team did succeed. So kudos to them. Let's jump to the NFC East this week, because this was a huge week for us. Just as important as this week was, and we talked about how this was one of those weeks you need to win this week. We could not afford to take an L this week. If the game was close, it needed to be closed out. Reason being, we had Dallas and we had Green Bay. Huge game, and it did not look good early for us as Eagles fans for Green Bay. Green Bay, Dallas went out front. I think it was 21-6, and Green Bay just looked to be reeling. I was a little bit concerned, but obviously Aaron Rodgers did what Aaron Rodgers does. Became captain comeback, and he settled the team down and really just marched up and down the field for the rest of the game to get done what needed to get done.
Yeah, it was with the Cowboys. Those games are great. All right, like the Cowboys Packers games that we've gotten have been absolutely phenomenal, like entertaining. And if we could watch Packers Cowboys honestly over and over again, several times a year to see Aaron Rodgers beat the Cowboys, I would pay money to see that, because it's awesome. The Cowboys, they're at 2-3, and they've got issues. Their pass rush is starting to improve, but that secondary is just bad. Still, they cannot stop anyone. I don't know if you saw, Nolan Carroll got released. I think it was today. So
I did not see that.
Yeah, he's gone from the Cowboys. Without Sean Lee, they can't. They're not the same. So they got issues. 2-3. They're I don't know if they're technically second or third in the division now, behind Washington, but
Third.
Third? Okay, yeah. So they are third behind Washington.
Washington's a half game ahead of them.
Half game, okay. So, yeah, they're in third place now. And I've heard stuff about Zeke still could be suspended. And the courts are trying to reach a decision as early as this week. So, who knows? Like, there's a chance that we might have seen Zeke play his final game for a while, because if that suspension does get upheld, like, that's trouble for them. And I think we play them week 11 or something after our bye week, and that if they don't have him, that's huge for this upcoming stretch for them. So we'll see with that. And they also, I stumbled upon something with them. I don't know if I'm not going to mix too much politics in with this, but it is something that I did see earlier tonight that I did want to mention, because it was Jerry Jones, you know how Jerry Jones said that any player that protests the anthem was going to get benched, right?
Yes.
So I saw this tweet by Mike Sullivan. He had said that he talked to someone very close to the Cowboys, and he gave a summary of what was said. And I'll read it to you now. It says, the Cowboys played Eminem's freestyle in their locker room right before practice today. And if you don't know, Eminem came out with a freestyle rap on BET. I think it was last night it was debuted, and it was pretty much attacking Donald Trump. So they played that at practice. A lot of players feel stabbed in the back by Jerry Jones. There was a mandatory team meeting after practice, and a lot of guys are pissed, to say the least, at Jones's announcement to bench anyone who protests during the national anthem. So, again, it's Jerry Jones putting his big fat mouth, or saying stuff that he shouldn't be saying. And this is just typical Jones. Dates back to, I don't even know how long, saying stuff like Greg Hardy, who was, domestic, charged with domestic violence. I'm sorry. Them signing him, and then Jerry Jones calling him a leader on the team. Stuff like that. It's why Jerry Jones is just horrible. He is the worst, and it's why I absolutely despise him. So, the reason why I just bring this up is because it's another, subplot of the Cowboy season. You have Zeke's suspension, you have this, and this is why the Cowboys have been mediocre for the past 15, 20 years, because of stuff like this, and it all goes back to Jerry Jones. So they're in a hole, 2-3. They got a lot of work to do if they're going to climb out of third place and try to get atop of the division or even a wild card. They got work to do. So,
yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't really want to get into that political stuff. I appreciate you reading that, because it is definitely something to keep an eye on in regards to how, another little tick box to put into the Cowboys season. Yes. Of, we're going to see how players, react and how they feel going forward. I don't really know what to say. I don't know how to react to that, because I don't know how the players are going to be affected by it until we actually see. Mm-hmm. I don't, until we actually see a player, who does decide that they are going to protest it and actually see a suspension come down. I don't know. And then it's going to be very interesting. It might be something we have to discuss then, just to see. But, the thing with Jerry is, when Jerry puts his mind and makes up his mind on something, whether he's going to sign a player and then defend the player to the very end, like a Greg Hardy, or whether it's, in regards to, if you're going to protest the national anthem. When Jerry gets his mind to it, there's a reason they call it Jerry World. It's Jerry's world, and you're privileged to be in it. I personally can't imagine being a Cowboys fan. And honestly, it's not even like let's take out the whole rivalry and all that stuff. I mean, just as a fan of a sports team, there's constant drama. There is constantly character issues and ownership. I appreciate. It's weird because I'm in my base. I told you guys last week I'm a Cardinals fan, and I'm in the opposite of. I feel like my management doesn't give enough of his shit. This or ownership. This is the other way, where he's almost too involved. He's on the sidelines during games at times, and it's like it just seems like he's got his hands too far into the cookie jar. That ownership doesn't need to be that in hands on. You put guys in place to be the decision makers for a reason. And I just don't know how I would feel. I don't know that I could stand or feel a loyalty to a team like that. Yeah. They don't even have to be named the Cowboys. This could be the Browns we're talking about in a similar scenario, and I would feel that way about the Browns or the Miami Dolphins or the Chicago Bears. I'm just simply saying it is the Cowboys that we're talking about. And if you really look back and you take a step back, that's really difficult for me as a fan to sit there and see year after year of these kinds of guys coming through. And I believe in giving guys extra chances. But if you're just continuing to see that pattern of behavior, and they continue to stand by and make excuses and defend this and that, I don't get it. For me, it's enough. I'd be done with them. So, not even just as the players, I'm going to be interested to see how fans react to this. I've already seen fans on Twitter who were saying that Jerry Jones is really making it difficult to be a fan this year. And of course, I'm throwing my 2 cents in, letting them know it's never too late to jump on the bandwagon. But I in a weird way, I kind of feel for them just from a fan perspective, not in a rivalry perspective, because in the end, you choose to be that fan, that's your thing. But I do I can empathize at least a little bit. That sucks. And I mean, if you are a person who's truly been a fan your whole life, or you've lived there your whole life and that's your team, I can empathize with that. That's what you grew up. And honestly, at our age, you did grow up with the Aikmans and Emmitt Smiths. And even though he had some character issues, he was a guy that proved that he had a good character in a lot of different ways. And that was Michael Irvin. I never thought Michael Irvin was really that bad of a guy. But, you grew up in an era where the Cowboys were actually a team to admire. Yeah. And, man, once those guys were gone, the ship had never straightened itself out and gone right. So, anyway, I appreciate you sharing that. I don't know how deeply I feel about it yet. I'm going to have to play a wait and see on that. But, you're right. It's just another subplot for the Dallas Cowboys season. Yet another season with subplots, might I add. It's every year these things are going on.
Exactly. And that's why I brought it up. I'm not going to bring up your stance on the protests or politics. I'm just mentioning it because it is literally another subplot.
Right.
That's potentially being brought up with the Cowboys, and you always hear it every year with them, and it's like clockwork right now. So that's why I brought it up.
And you're right about Ezekiel Elliott, because at this point, if I'm the Cowboys, if we go another game behind in the division at this point, I might chalk the season up as a loss and just say, dude, just drop your appeal. Wow, geez, I couldn't think of the word for a second. Just drop your appeal on this, dude. Just serve it out, and this way we can start fresh next season. Because now, not only do you have to worry about this season, you got to worry about, is this going to carry into next season, to where it not only affects this year, but it affects the open of next year. And to me, if I'm a Cowboy fan, if I'm part of the Cowboys organization, I want this guy to be like, listen, dude, you're getting this suspension at some point, whether you like it or not. You may as well start serving it now so you don't screw us over for next year. So, again, that's another subplot. Another subplot that could not only be for this year, but now it can carry into next year.
Exactly.
Jesus. But anyway, I agree with you. And now you want to talk about subplots. Oh, I'm going to say it. Again, I might get heat for this, but it's as bad as it gets. The Giants with 4 wide receivers getting hurt, and I'm talking major injuries, career or season-ending injuries. Odell Beckham Jr. out for the year. Brandon Marshall, we talked about him last week, out for the year. Sterling Shepard out for the year. Who else am I missing?
No, Shepard's in.
Is he the minor one?
He's the minor one. Yeah.
But is the minor one like 6 weeks or something like that?
No, I think he's still. It was only minor. I think he's still, because he's not going to miss any playing time. So
who was the fourth one?
Oh, the returner they got, Dwayne Harris. I'm sorry, Dwayne Harris was the other injury.
I forget, how long is he out for?
It could be the year.
Jesus,
what I remember.
That whole team is out for the year. Then they suspend Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie this week.
Yeah.
Today. That happened today.
Yes.
Jesus, what is going on with this team? I mean, there's just you go from a team that creates their own terrible situations to a team that just seems the last few years to have no good juju going in their way.
Hmm.
That's as bad as I've ever seen for a team to have your top three wide receivers all go down, two with season-ending injuries. I don't even know. I actually feel somewhat bad for the Giants. I'm gonna say it. I don't care who likes it. I feel bad for them. I'm not a completely heartless person. I'm a ginger that steals souls. It's different. And I can actually, again, I can empathize for that. That's difficult as a fan to swallow.
Well, that makes one of us because as a guy who spent 11 years after high school in the Central Jersey area among the Giants fans, um, to all my Giants friends out there who might for some reason listen to this, to our show, ha ha ha. All right, and I don't mean to gloat, amongst injury, but I mean it's just it's bad. It's so bad, and I do want to apologize because last week I said we were talking about the NFC East, the division. I said that the division was pretty much playing out exactly how I thought it would. Um, I was a little bit wrong. I totally overrated the Giants. Nice. I totally overrated the Giants, and it's crazy because I had them being, I think I remember like around like a 9-7, 8-8 team. They could go winless. They
Well,
could go
you're not the
winless.
only person, though. I think coming into this season, the Giants were overrated. I've been saying it, and I think that carried out. Now, I don't even know if you can even rate them because they don't have the majority of their weapons at this point.
Yeah.
But you're not the only person, so don't feel bad about that. I think that started very early with overvaluing what the Giants were going to be this year.
Yeah. So I don't feel bad. And like it's just another rival team that I hate, that one less rival team to deal with, this season. So we can pretty much put the Giants on the back burner. They're not going to be a threat. It comes down to the Cowboys and Redskins. Giants. Now here's the double-edged sword. If you go winless, or then go one win, 2 wins, I don't know. But with them being with them potentially ending up with one of the worst records in the league this year, and therefore getting a top draft pick for next year, I am really scared about them getting Saquon Barkley. I will admit that. If they get Barkley, I will be, for the second year in a row at the draft, I will be heartbroken. Okay, I'm not saying that I expect the Eagles to draft Barkley. There's no way we're gonna get Barkley unless we trade all our picks to trade up and get him, which I don't see happening. Howie Roseman's not going to do that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that a Penn State kid, potential Heisman Trophy winner, definitely out of the games that I've seen, the best running back prospect that I personally have scouted, in my time of studying players and everything. He's the best I've seen. And if he goes to the Giants, I will be absolutely heartbroken. So that's a little double-edged sword that I'm kind of like teetering on the fence with, and I'm kind of praying that the Giants do bad, but not that bad that they land Barkley, or if they get a high draft pick, who knows? Maybe they draft one of the quarterbacks. Maybe they draft Sam Darnold out of USC, and as the replacement for Eli Manning. So we'll see. Let's hope. Let's pray.
Well, listen, don't worry too much. You still got the Browns out there. The way they're looking this year, you got the Dolphins out there. There's a lot of teams out there that look like shit.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're going to go winless. We've talked about it. It is very hard. It is as hard in the NFL to go winless as it is to go undefeated.
Very true.
It is you have to have no luck whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't look like they have any luck this year whatsoever, but I can't imagine with a team that has Eli, and I'm not praising Eli, up and down, but the guy, I just can't see him being the quarterback of a team that doesn't win any football games. I think at some point they're going to be close enough that he can run that 2 to 4 minute drill and get them in the end zone, and they'll pull one of these games out. I don't know what game, but it's going to be one or two. I don't know if they're going to win more than 2 games. I'm going to say at this point, I'm going to give them 2, and we'll see. For us, anything's a bonus after that because then they drop in the draft. At this point, I'm not concerned with them catching anybody as far as getting into the playoffs. So I think it's a done deal with them. I'm not worried. I will say this, me personally, I hear what you're saying about Barkley and if he's going to end up there. I don't worry about what happens with my divisional rivals when it comes to falling in the draft. Unless we stink and they could take our actual position, I really don't care what happens with them. Because, I mean, the chips are going to fall as they're going to may. They're gonna land wherever they land in the draft. And they're going to, whoever's there, they're going to grab whatever's going to best fit them. So I can't be worried about that. I'd rather see them suck balls and us win everything. So that's what I'm hoping for and praying for. And just as far as the Redskins go, I'm going to answer the question that you presented to me earlier. Well, really in our notes, but I can tell you because I said it last week. I stick by my stance I made last week. To me, the Redskins are the team to look out for that we have to worry about in the division. I think I'm not taking Dallas out of the equation yet, but there's just more added on to the whole Dallas Cowboys saga. I'm still not sure what we have with Washington, and that kind of scares me because they could be playing better than they really are and maybe dip off, or they could be a team that hasn't shown everything as far as what they have and what they can do on the field and their coaching schemes and everything. And maybe they're kind of a team that's going to be lying in the weeds. And when we get to that back half of our schedule where it's much more difficult because we have so many divisional rivalry games that are going to be in that second half of the schedule, these games are important for us to win now. That could be when that team turns it on. And, if we play them and they play us tough and take us out in 2 games in the division, that could be huge for playoff implications. So I don't know what I make of them yet. I haven't watched enough of them yet to sit there and say I could see if I think they're the real deal. I think they are a good team. I don't know that they're getting enough credit yet. I'm not over the moon about them yet, but I think the next couple weeks we're going to start to see. I think we're the test, to be honest. We're going to see what Washington is when they play us. So it's going to be a tough week. I think we're going to have a tough couple weeks coming up. And I think that this game this week was a huge, huge game for us to win, particularly having those 2 divisional losses in the bye week there. It allowed us to pad where we're at going into this week's game.
Here we go.
So obviously this week, this is going to be a very difficult matchup. This week we have, we're playing Carolina. So
short week, Thursday night game.
Yeah, it's a short week against Carolina. In a weird way, it benefited us that we were able to handily do what we had to do against Arizona with no major injuries. But now we go in and we have Carolina. So what do you think, or how do you feel this week going into Carolina? Because I can tell you right now, I am nervous about this week.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'll address the injuries. The injury report was released today. Lane Johnson is out. I'm guessing he didn't get through all the concussion protocol. That's going to be big. and hopefully Big V can come in and be solid like it was last game against the Cardinals. But the Cardinals D line front seven is a totally different story than the Panthers, so that's going to be big. Cox and Smallwood are listed as questionable. Uh, I have a feeling Cox will give it a go. I have less of a feeling about Smallwood. I think Smallwood hasn't practiced from last time I checked. I could be wrong, and it's just a gut feeling. I feel like Cox was close last week, and with this game coming up, I think that he has practiced with the team this week, and I think he's going to give it a go. Smallwood, I'm a little bit more doubtful with, but we shall see. Um, with this game, I am a bit nervous. I'm not nervous in the fact that I think that we can't win the game. Um, it's a definitely winnable game. It's just that this Panthers defense it's the biggest test of the season so far in terms of our offense going against a legit defense. And no disrespect to the Giants defense, um, which is still a good defense. It's just that this Panthers defense, they rank third in points against and ninth in yards against right now. And that front seven, we talk about our front seven. That front seven is formidable as well. They have Julius Peppers back, and he still can ball. We know about Kuechly at linebacker already. We know he's still best middle linebacker in the game. He's a beast. So that goes without saying. They got that just that line. They have pieces there where they could be a real test against our offensive line. It's going to be a good measuring stick to see just how good this our offensive line is against a legit defensive line. Um, and that's why I said Lane Johnson's injury is big. And so we'll see about that. The good thing is their secondary. The Panthers secondary is pretty weak. Kurt Coleman, who was a good safety for them, surprise, surprise, a former Eagle goes somewhere else and does well. But Kurt Coleman is not playing; he's out. And then their starting corner, I can't forget his name. I'm sorry, I just had it. I wrote it down somewhere earlier today. But I can't forget. I can't remember his name. But he looks like he's questionable, I believe. Last time I checked. And but even if he does play, he's a corner that's not really that that much of a concern. He's beatable. He can be beat deep. So that secondary can be attacked. I think that's the as far as the game plan, that's where we're gonna go. I think we're gonna go pass heavy again. I think we're gonna try to exploit that secondary, and I think that's the approach Doug Peterson is gonna take. As far as the Panthers' offense, they run the ball. They're run heavy. I think they're in like the top five in terms of run attempts per game. However, their yards per carry is pretty low. It's like 3.5. So even though they're committed to the run. They will run it, even if it's not working. Um, in 3 out of their 5 games, they've run for more than 100 yards. But I think one of those games was against the Niners, where their average was pretty damn low. And then of course, like I said, 2 games. In 2 games, they were under 100 yards, and those were against pretty good defenses, against the Bills and the Lions. So if they struggle to run the ball against those defenses, our defense is better than those 2 teams, and so we should be able to stop them in the run. But they have the skill players, they have the runners to definitely beat us if our linebackers aren't disciplined, if our defensive ends aren't disciplined. They will take advantage. Like it's going to be key for the linebackers to not, you know, to stay disciplined all game, and to make sure they fill in the right gaps, and they don't bite on anything, because the minute they do, Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, they're going to take advantage. Um, their wide receivers, they're decent. They got Funchess, Kelvin Benjamin, Greg Olson is out, so that's been a big blow to them. Um, the good thing is their wide receivers aren't really the speed type of wide receivers that we've gone up against, and that kind of works out in our favor. They're more so like big physical guys, but with Mills and Douglas, they're physical corners, so that plays into their hands a little bit more. I'm not going to say that, oh, now we're going to shut them down. What I'm saying is I think you can have a little bit more confidence and a little less worry because they can actually, put up a fight against these types of wide receivers than an Odell Beckham or Keenan Allen who, torched our secondary before. So I think the matchup is close. I think that it's a winnable game, but with it being on a short week and in Carolina, it is going to be very tough. Um, so I don't know. What are your thoughts on the matchups and how do you think we match up against them? And are there any are there any players you're looking out for? You're worried about?
I think you hit a lot of the nails on the head there. I'm really interested to see. Obviously, huge because I feel like the running game is going to be, for us to exploit their secondary, we need to have that running game. I think that's how we run our team, our offensive team. I think it's fueled by the pass. It gets its jump start, its spark from that running game. If we can establish that early, not having Lane there concerns me. It's going to be a huge hit for us. So I think somehow, as if we can get a little bit of push up in the front line and create a couple of holes, for me, LeGarrette Blount's going to be another huge factor this week because he's a big enough guy that he can blow through and knock a few guys down to create some of that. I'm not really impressed with their secondary, so I think we'll be able to exploit that. That being said, I think Zach Ertz is also going to be a big piece of the offense. I would like to see him get some more yards after the catch.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, I think he's going to be really big. I think the middle of the field is going to be a big factor for us. If we can establish a few passes or a few plays in the middle of the field with Ertz and maybe with Aguilar in the slot, their middle linebackers at bay open up a few deeper passes and bigger plays on the outside. So I'm going to be very need to tackle. The defense, the secondary needs. It's not just going to be. This is not where Carson Palmer is going to sit in the pocket. Now you have to worry about Cam using his legs. If our defense does what they've been doing, where they are shutting down the secondary, shutting down the receivers, or at least they're in place, like I had said, where okay, they're not making the tackles, but they're there to make them. That's going to be a huge factor this week. They're where they need to be as far as, if it's man coverage or whatever they do, if they do any kind of zone and they're in place, Cam's going to take off and try to run the football. So now it's what we've seen where they break tackles. Cam's a big quarterback. Cam's athletic enough that he can break those tackles. They need to make sure they wrap this guy up and minimize the damage as far as Cam. He seems to have turned it on after a slow start the first few weeks. So he concerns me because I don't think we've really had a chance to see what this defense is like against a true running quarterback. So it's going to be a test. We've seen what Carson can do to defenses. I think the obvious athleticism advantage goes to Cam Newton, and I'm going to be a little bit more worried about that. So I think that I like their wide receiver core with Funchess, and I think they can definitely create. You're right, though. Greg Olsen, I think, is the guy that opens up that field for those guys. Not having him playing is going to be a huge thing for us as well. So we'll see. I'm concerned this week. If I'm being honest and I'm putting a prediction down, I'm going to call an L this week. I'm 100% hoping I'm wrong, and I don't think it's going to be that close of a game. If you consider like 13 points close, I think that we're definitely going to lose within probably a 2-possession game. I don't know if it'll go to 3 possessions, but I'm thinking we're probably going to lose somewhere in the 10 to 13 point range.
Wow. Okay.
So we'll see. I mean, I hope if they can pull this game out and win it impressively, then I swear the Eagles are made of this.
Gotcha. It's weird because, um, I remember the names. I was trying to mention names of the defensive line that I was worried about. It was K'Wan Short and Mario Addison. They're legit. So that's sorry. It popped in my head. So I wanted to mention them, give them due respect because they are legit. Um, Earlier this week, I predicted my prediction was going to be an Eagles loss as well. I had I had the score about like Eagles 17, Panthers 20. I think it's going to be a close game. Last time I checked the line, it was a 3.5. The Panthers were giving 3.5. I don't know if that's changed. So I had it Eagles 17, Panthers 20. But today, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was I just felt better. I don't know if it's because I've had more time to think about it, but there's something about this team where I feel like Doug is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, Doug is shown to exploit weaknesses of our opponent really well this year. He like I said, he comes up with a good scheme. I really feel like he's going to exploit some of these Panthers' weaknesses. Like I said, their success has been with the rushing attack, but the games, they have had games where they struggled and running the ball, and those were against pretty decent defenses. If our defense plays the way it's supposed to, and Cox is in there, who's that's huge. If he plays, that's huge. Um, if our defense plays the way it's supposed to, I think it's going to be tough for the Panthers to really generate a whole lot of points on this defense. I mean, on our defense. So I flipped it and I said Eagles 20, Panthers 14. That's going to be my prediction.
We are definitely on two separate wavelengths with that.
Yeah, we are. We are.
I just don't
this,
know how they're going to react with Cam because I think he's the X factor. I think the defense can do enough to be in a position to create, difficulties for their wide receiving core. I think that our do enough to limit the running game. But when that's all shut down, from what I've seen from them with a big athletic guy coming at them running the football, Cam Newton factor. And from what I've seen the last couple of weeks, I just personally am a lot more scared because you don't know when he's going to take off and what direction he's going to go. And that's a problem for me. Watching how the secondary tackles, if he can get past that line and start picking up some yards, I think he can run a long way. The only one who's going to take him down is Malcolm Jenkins. Adam.
Yeah. This is definitely a game we could lose. If we do lose, I will not be surprised. I'm not going to be heartbroken. The Panthers are 4-1. They're a good team. This could be a potential playoff preview, between us and the Panthers. If we lose, it's not going to shock me because, like I said, it's a short week and it's at Carolina. And right now, we just, we don't have Lane Johnson. If we had Lane Johnson and a fully healthy Cox, that could definitely be the difference. But I'm still going to go with an Eagles win. I think part of me is putting faith in Doug Peterson and his game plan. So we shall see. I think it's going to be a tight game all throughout because just of the nature of the two teams and how well they're playing so far. So I think it's going to be a tight game. I just, I hope even if we lose, I just hope it's another tough fought loss like against the Chiefs where, we played a great game. It just the difference was 2 turnovers. I hope that if we do lose, we still show that, hey, we we stuck right there with them. We played a good game. Just a few bounces didn't go our way. We had one or two mistakes that made the difference. Because if that happens, then I'm still gonna feel good about this Eagles team. If we come up and we just completely look flat and we look like a shell of what we were on Sunday against the Cardinals, then I'll be worried. Then I'll be really, really pissed off. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think this team is wired differently than what we saw in years before. I think we can see signs of that. I think Blunt's leadership is starting to play a factor where he's not letting the guys get complacent. There was a report out there about him saying that how like he doesn't want people like to dwell on the win for too long. It's on to the next one. So I think this team is different. I think they're going to at least, if we're going to lose, they're going to at least keep it close. So let's hope.
Hey, I nothing happy then to eat my words. Sorry to eat my guy. Just a real quick. I think Zach Ertz is going to be a big factor for me this week because I do. Obviously the running game is going to be a factor. If Zach can catch the ball in the middle of the field, yards after the catch are always a bonus. But I think if he can catch if he can make plays in the middle of the field and kind of, get that linebacker core and that kind of on their heels a little bit, that may open up those plays for Aguilar and for Torrey Smith to be able to make big plays down the field. So with that, last thing we're going to ask, who do you believe that we should look out for on the Eagles side of the football to have a breakout game this week?
I'm going to go with Alshon. I think the matchup calls for it. I think people have been screaming for Alshon to have that big monster game. I think this is the game. I think Alshon, just like last week with Torrey Smith, I think it's just his time. And Carson's going to hook up with him for at least one touchdown. Hopefully it's that corner fade that we've been wanting to see. So that's what I'm going to go with Alshon Jeffrey.
Cool. No, and I agree with you. I think that's a good pick for this week. It's going to be very interesting to see. With that, we're going to do our little social media promotion. So, Charles, anything you want to plug? Any shout-outs you want to give this week?
Yeah, I'm going to, as always, my Twitter. Follow me on Twitter. My handle is Chucks Maranin. That's ChuxMaranan. And follow. Keep on there is my. I put my link to my blog, which is chucksmaranin.blogspot.com. I just earlier today I wrote up a new post. It's about Nelson Aguilar. It's a well thought out piece by me. Well, all my blog posts kind of are there. I usually do like it kind of for my blog posts. I usually like to do like a long form write up. So if you have the time, if you want to get if you want to read my thoughts and my fanhood over Nelson Aguilar, check that out. Check out my blog and keep up to date with it with any posts that I make. I haven't been writing it regularly, but I want to try to do that, write in it at least on like a weekly basis from now on, to share my thoughts and just to get some opinions out there more often. So follow me Twitter, follow my blog, and yeah.
Awesome. Find me I'm also doing Lazy Booking Podcast again. We're on hiatus. We're working some things out, hoping to come back very soon. But that is something that if you're a person who watches this, and I do know a few people who are aware of both, but that is not gone. So anyway, you can find our show. Our show is obviously on this YouTube channel. We're going to be sharing the link on our personal Facebooks. We share it on our Twitters. If you guys could subscribe, if you can rate it, leave any feedback or comments on videos, just on the page in general, we appreciate that. Obviously, it's a work in progress. I think we definitely upgraded the quality for Charles this week, so that's a plus.
Yeah. Improvements.
Yeah. And we're getting there. We're going to have different things. I think we're finding what our niche is and how we're going to get this thing going. We did create a Twitter this week. Tweeted on it, but we do have a Twitter this week that we'll get more active on once we kind of get it. You know, it might be this week. Maybe we'll tweet a little bit tomorrow. I'll get you access to it, by the way. But a Twitter, we are planning on being much more active on, or being active on that, and interacting with, you know, Eagles fans on stuff. So you can find that at BOAT 1933.
Yeah.
Pulling it up. Obviously, 1933 is because that's when the Eagles were established. So surprisingly, Birds of a Feather was not available, so I had to be creative on how I could get anything Birds
What a
of a
surprise.
Feather. So I'm like, you know what? People put things for birthdays. Born in 1933. Yeah, I'm sorry. So it's BOAF 1933. I said BOAT, like 1933. A couple of other cool things with it too. For me personally, I'm on Snapchat. I am on Snapchat. I am on Instagram, and I am on Twitter at Heel Chrome. Heel is in HEEL, as in I'm a bad dude. So yeah, that's where we can find us at. Facebook. Participating in things. We've already had some interest from some people that we want to have on. One of my buddies, Paul, who Charles is familiar now from the group. He's actually the Eagles and on the Sixers, and some Philly stuff groups, and he's awesome. Been friends with him since high school as well. So I think we're going to try to have him on the show probably after a few weeks after we get our feet on the ground. And Mark Keller said, a lot of people have expressed. So if you're interested, reach out to myself or Charles. We'd love to have questions for people, you know, every now and then, or maybe on a bi-weekly, or whatever it is, however we want to do it. So again, thank you guys for listening, for watching. Thank you from Birds of a Feather chat group. And anything else before we go, Charles?
No, let's hope we get a good win tomorrow night, because our next game after that against Redskins is a Monday. That's a long time to wait for the next game. So let's hope for a win.
It is.
But yes, thanks for your support. Thanks for listening. If you do, you know, we're getting a feel for everything, and we appreciate it. So it'll continue to improve each week.
So again, from myself and from Charles here at Birds of a Feather, thank you guys again. Rate, subscribe, follow, all the good stuff. Share. And we'll talk to you next. Birds. Smell you later.